Hi everyone, welcome to NCS webcast on AI and robotics in the healthcare industry. Today I have my guest panelists, Yan Shixing from NCS, Dr. Chet Yong from Good Doctor Technology, and Mr. Raju from NUS. Today we'll be discussing with everyone, as I mentioned, AI and robotics and healthcare. Let me start with saying, what are the hot technologies today? We always talk about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. AI, blockchain, cloud, data, ecosystem, and 5G. These are the very hot technologies today. And many of these have its own applications in healthcare sectors alone. Let's take a look at a very key trend today, which is digital health. There are three key trends in digital health that we have seen. First one being telemedicine, and AI plays a big part in telemedicine, especially in the AI triaging. Then we look at patient monitoring devices, whether from the simple wearables that you have into some telediagnostic tools. It is a combination of certain robotics and AI algorithm in these monitoring devices that can benefit healthcare industry. Last but not least, healthcare assistive robots. Right, from the market size, you can see this is probably one of the biggest in 300 over million US dollar that can actually bring to the healthcare industry. So today we'll be focusing in AI and robotics in healthcare. This is Pepper. Everybody knows Pepper. And this is probably one of the first most famous robots that's being used. Right? Pepper was not really used or innovated for healthcare industry. Right? It is mainly like a concierge robot doing a lot of greetings and guidance. Right? I remember when I was in Barcelona Mobile World Congress, Pepper was there to guide us to different locations and different exhibition halls. But of course, today, Pepper has evolved from being a greetings and guidance or concierge robots into many different forms of robotics that is helping. You have logistics, you have security and surveillance robots. And in healthcare industry, we see a lot of personal care and assistance robot. Later on, my colleague Shixing will be sharing on a few robots that NCS has built and how they are used in the healthcare industry. AI has been there for many years, and we have experienced two AI winter due to the lack of computational powers, storage, and many other reasons. But most importantly, AI couldn't move as fast as it is today because of the lack of applications. From this, you can see that there are many applications of AI in today's world. The use cases ranging from transportation, retail, manufacturing, and of course in healthcare industry. Today we have two experts, Dr. Chet, who runs one of the biggest AI consultation companies, right? And also Mr. Raju, who actually recently published an AI body of knowledge. They will share with us what AI is and how AI can contribute to the healthcare industry. We can see very strong growth drivers of AI in healthcare. That can be due to an aging population. It can be due to imbalance between health workforce and patients. And of course, increasing global health expenditure that requires or expect us to be able to use technology such as AI to lower the cost while improving accessibility of the healthcare. There's continuous shortage of nursing and technician staff, right? By 2020, which is last year actually, the report shows that there will be a shortage of 1.2 million of nurses. AI is there and will help medical practitioners effectively achieve their tasks with minimum human intervention. In the next couple of slides, we'll see how AI can actually contribute to the healthcare industry. So again, Dr. Chet will talk a lot about that. I mean, he loved this iron triangle of healthcare, right? Where AI is poised to be able to help to improve accessibility, lower costs, and also improve or maintain the quality of healthcare. I'll let Dr. Chet talk more about that. And from an application of AI in healthcare perspective, there are many researchers talk about digital consultation, which I'm sure Dr. Chet will share later on. AI can help in radiology and images. The panelists, we can discuss this together, how AI actually help to augment or help the doctors and nurses or researchers to do scanning, reading the CT scans and X-rays. Robotics, I will leave it to my colleague Shixing to talk a lot about robotics itself. And again, don't forget robotics. Many people think that robots are just robots. That may be the outer casing, but internally, you probably will need AI algorithm for it to work as well. Last but not least, clinical and pharmaceutical trials. With vaccines that's happening around the world today, right? How fast we actually get the vaccine out for COVID-19. There are many trials that's ongoing, and AI definitely has helped in improving the quality and accuracy of such trials. So these are some of the examples that we've seen AI in action in the healthcare industry. Another key thing, although we wouldn't really say it is purely for healthcare industry, there's RPA, robotic process automation, which kind of use some AI algorithm in achieving that as well. So from this chart, you can see about 10% of RPA adoption is in pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. The biggest one being in FSI, financial services, and also telco and IT. And what can RPA be used in the healthcare industry? We all know that healthcare insurance is a big process, tedious process, complex process, and also a big market by itself. There's a lot of RPA used in today's claim processing, and it includes healthcare insurance processing as well. And of course, RPA can be used to help in data entry of what we call ADT, right? Administration, discharge, and transfer in a typical patient journey. So these are what we can see RPA in action from that perspective in healthcare industry. This slide shows about AI involvement in fighting against COVID-19. We have seen AI used in thermal scanners during COVID situation, whether it's in Singapore or globally. We have seen China using AI in supercomputers form to diagnose or to detect potential coronavirus, COVID-19 symptoms. We have seen AI being used in autonomous vehicle to do disinfection, to distribute PPE, and so on and so forth. So there are many applications of AI and speed up the use cases of AI to fight COVID-19 in the healthcare industry. With that, I think I have given you a good overview of how AI and robotics are going to help or contribute to the healthcare industry. Next, I'll pass on to my colleagues, Dr. Yan Shixing, to talk more about robotics itself and how robotics can actually help in contributing to the healthcare industry. Thank you. Shixing, over to you.
Thanks, Jim, for introducing the trend of AI and the robotics in future of healthcare. Before I introduce some innovation work we have done in NCS, I'd like to give you a very brief introduction of NCS Corporate Labs, the team behind the NCS technology innovation. We have a team of researchers and engineers working on AI, robotics, and other emerging technology. Not only having our own PhD researchers, we also collaborate with universities and A-Star in creating the new IPs and translating them to new products and applications. NCS invested heavily in AI and robotics. Our $42 million Singtel AI Corp Lab has done a lot of good work and was featured in Singapore's very first national AI strategy released by Prime Minister's Office in 2019. And today I will talk about two projects with two public healthcare clusters supported by SG Healthcare Assistive Robotics Program or SHARP program. When we work on AI research in NCS, we are actually looking at a few layers. The bottom layer of AI is really how to handle the computation of the massive amount of data from anywhere when everything is connected. Then the second layer is really to have the perception. Perception is a process to do interpretation, acquire, select, and then organize the sensory information captured from the real world. Then the next layer is cognition, which is all about mimic human behavior and the reasoning. The next layer of AI is prediction, which is more difficult. The AI will be able to proactively predict and suggest. And finally, AI can help people to make decisions. Now we can see more and more autonomous systems to sense, perceive, infer, and act. That all thanks to AI. And that's how AI and robotics technology can empower today's digital world. When everything is connected, so we can have the digital infrastructure. These are smart buildings, smart factory, smart hospitals, so on and so forth. We have also seen more and more mobile robotic workforces, ranging from service robots, UAVs, autonomous vehicles for transport and logistics. And of course, then the top layer is really to have the augmented cognition for all the system. Then we can help people with speech recognition, machine translation, video analytics, so on and so forth. Right? Those are the AI research we are working on. Now let me talk about the healthcare assistive robotics R&D in NCS. Jim already addressed the importance of developing this technology. We know in Singapore, our society has rapidly growing aging population. That means the healthcare system will have to serve more patients with more complex needs. With growing demand for healthcare services, we have also seen the rising cost and the shortage of healthcare workforce. We believe that's also why AI applications will play a very important role to help address some of these challenges in healthcare and hopefully to transform the healthcare landscape. Chart, the Center of Healthcare Assistive and Robotics Technology, is a platform that enables healthcare professionals to work closely with industry, academia, and the research institutions to co-develop and test bed impactful healthcare solutions. So under the support of SG Healthcare Assistive and Robotics Program, or SHARP program, we NCS are working with NUHS on robotic nursing assistant and SynHealth on fall prevention technology, contributing to nurse-robot teaming for care delivery. We hope this can contribute to the 3 strategic shifts driven by MOH. These are from healthcare to health, from hospital to home, and the shift the focus beyond just better care to value-driven care. In NCS, we are building a healthcare assistant robot. If you look at this picture, you can see this robot called Florence. She can assist nurses in ward with various tasks like patient vital sign taking, food and medicine delivery, patient identification, data collection, night patrolling, and many other different tasks. We have a team of engineers and scientists working on different components of the robot base, payload, and also the software system. So this robot is different than all the service robot in the market today. When we talk about the healthcare use case, safety is always the top concern. So even for this robot, the navigation system needs to be able to roam itself precisely within the hospital environment and handle many special obstacle avoidance, such as for the low-lying or overhanging objects. The AI technology, including computer vision, natural language processing, provide the cognitive ability for this robot. So it has the speech to text, text to speech, facial recognition, emotion detection, etc. So it can recognize patients and healthcare staff and their behavior, posture, and speech. The AI robot can provide the clinical assistance, such as non-invasive vital sign measurement. So in future, it can also enable telehealth. The payload itself will enable the robot to assist nurses for in-ward service, including logistic delivery and medicine delivery. It can also guide the patient for self-medication. In order to do that, we know the accurate facial recognition and the biometric authentication for patients and nurses are very important. Video and audio for robots are just like eyes and ears for humans. We have the homegrown speech-to-text engine, which can handle Singlish very well, not only understanding what people say, we also have emotion detection, sentiment analysis from both video and audio. So the robot can know how to better interact with a person to provide better user experience. By using the video cameras on robot, we can detect suspicious objects, detect certain activities like cough and sneezing. It's important to still have a human touch when we provide contactless services. I think that's the value of having cognitive AI capabilities for the robots. We need a robot to have superhuman robot interaction ability. So it has the ability to react to patients and nurses in a socially appropriate manner, similar for its own navigation when it moves around in the hospital environment. Stay tuned, and we will review more details of our NCS nursing assistive robot very soon. Now, let me talk about another product we are working on in NCS. This is also the research project in collaboration with Changyi General Hospital in SingHealth Group. Patient fall in hospital is a very serious problem, and falls are the second leading cause of unintentional injury. What we are working on is to develop an edge smart camera with AI chipset inside, so it can run video and analytics to augment a nurse's workflow to improve productivity, and also act as nurse assistant to monitor and assist patients with fall risk. There are quite a few unique requirements for using such smart camera in hospital. Firstly, it's the privacy issue of using video camera watching over the ward. As you see, our camera can automatically mask the people's face, and this is done in the camera itself with no video recorded or transmitted back to the server. That's how we can protect patients' privacy, and we also conform to PDPA. Secondly, the camera also needs to integrate with hospital's system. When a possible fall is detected or predicted, the edge camera can trigger alert to a few seconds before the incident happens. So the on-duty nurse can have time to assist the patient. Then the vision-based technologies such as gesture recognition, activity detection are also developed to do this. We use the deep learning technology to predict people's movement. For different scenarios, we can deploy the millimeter wave sensor instead of using the video camera to detect people's movement and gesture when using a video camera is a big concern. We developed this edge device for fall prevention in hospital, but we can also apply this technology with our unique IPs for video analytics, which can be used in other use cases. Now let me talk about the third product, Robot Manager, a robot fleet management system. When we look at today's world, especially for healthcare industry, contactless service become the new normal. We have seen many service robots to do cleaning, delivery tasks in hospitals. How to manage all different types of robots will be a problem for us. Our answer is NCS Robot Manager, which is an open command control and communications platform for autonomous fleet management. So this fleet management system can perform as a middleware to interface and manage all different types of robots. We know these could be the robots, could be autonomous vehicles, could be UAVs. But the most important thing is to have the robot being an integral part of the user's business process so that it can integrate with the building management system or healthcare information system. As the owner or operator of all the robots, with our Robot Manager, you just monitor all the robots in one single user interface. You can focus on what needs to be done. For example, the robot needs to go from point A to point B, then to point C to complete a medicine collection and delivery job. You only need to focus on the job itself. You don't need to worry about which robot can do it, whether the robot has the capability or whether it has the battery to complete the job. Robot Manager will control everything. We also provide open APIs for the third-party applications to be built on our Robot Managers. We have a very sophisticated task assignment and path planning module to best dispatch the robots to complete tasks more efficiently and safely. So that's our NCS Robot Manager. Before I end, I want to touch upon the AI ethics topic, for which I believe it is very important for the applications in healthcare. We have heard some bold statement like AI will put all the radiologists out of job. I think that's the misperception of AI. No doubt today's AI technology can do certain job very well, since it can process huge amount of data in a very short period of time, and it can find patterns quickly and even better than human. But we shouldn't downplay the success of today's AI technology. It cannot replace a human's role in many cases, especially in healthcare industry. Medical imaging is one area benefit a lot from the rapid advancement of computer vision technology. Now AI can analyze increasingly complicated medical images, including X-rays, CT scan, MRI, so we can do early detection and diagnosis. AI can be more reliable than average radiologist. That's the fact. We do see with AI's assistance, radiologists can read and interpret more images more efficiently and accurately. However, AI still cannot outperform the good radiologist, and it will need the radiologist to label a large quantity of medical imaging data to train the AI model, especially for new diseases. Human will be still essential, but most importantly, all these AI applications in healthcare still need to remain human-centric, which means technology plays a supporting role to the medical professionals. And medical professionals still need to take the final decision-making responsibility. I think that's also the fact and the ethical aspect of AI applications in healthcare. The other topic is also explainable AI. When we apply AI in healthcare, especially with increased focus around data privacy, trust, and AI ethics, I think it is less of an issue when we look at using AI to automate the administrative process, streamlining outreach to patients. But we have to address this issue when we use AI for clinical decision support. So the accountability, transparency, permission, and privacy need to be addressed for use of personal health information. I think eventually we need to strike a balance between the individual's needs for privacy and a better AI for positive health outcomes. With that, I will end my sharing here, and I will leave these open questions to our panelists to discuss later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shixing, for your presentation. Very nice to see that there are many robotics initiative or programs that can contribute to the healthcare industry. So there was a joke, we probably will see more robots than doctors or patients in hospital in future. I don't know how true that will be, right? But if it is better for the entire healthcare industry and doctors can focus more on the more critical cases, that will be actually bringing benefits to the entire healthcare industry, right? Okay, so now after some presentation, let's go straight into our panel discussions where our two guest panelists, Dr. Chet and Raju, will be able to share with us a lot more beyond what NCS has to offer and what they know and what they have been doing in the AI or robotics industry to contribute to the healthcare sector. So as we can see from the presentation just now, right, the use of AI and robotics are becoming commonplace in healthcare sector. Chet, you're actually with Good Doctor Technology, a very well-known AI-based telehealth company. Can you share with us how does Good Doctor leverage on AI to advance the healthcare industry?
Yeah, Jim, thanks so much for having me. I think I want to draw reference on the fact that you mentioned that I'm a big fan of the iron triangle of healthcare. So basically, what it is the interplay between access, cost, and quality. And I mean, the obsession that we have in healthcare with the iron triangle, because it is built on a theory of limited resources. So in this sense, bringing back to what we are doing in terms of our vision and where we're driving change is very much to address the fact that in Southeast Asia, or in fact most places of the world, there's never enough medical or healthcare resources to serve the growing demand. So the fact that if we want to try to solve this conundrum, we actually focus our services and our capability to actually break the triangle, meaning how can we make our doctors more productive or more effective in the fact that their availability is very limited, and the way we count this level of productivity is in terms of what do they do with their time, right? Because time is basically the common denominator for all of us, be it a medical doctor or a patient, right? So the second point I wanted to kind of share before I go into my explanation is that the way I look at what AI does is the fact that you have a capability or a assistant kind of function that has the ability to learn. And to me, that is by definition how I view AI, the fact that you have a learning and dynamic capability within your platform. So that actually enables us to create what we call consult assistant capability within our digital telehealth platform. So most of telehealth providers, including us, we focus on the connectivity function where we bridge the distance or the gap between the patient and the doctor. But for what we do in Good Doctor Technology, we go one more step further and we look to increase the productivity of the doctor using the AI capability. So the type of service that we do is more of assisting or augmenting the doctor's decision-making capability, and at the same time, we automate the process where the doctor's time might be better used to focus on decision making. So going back to, I think, the points that were shared by yourself is that when it comes to decision making, we still very much preserve that capability, the experience, and the judgment with the medical practitioner. We do not build a system that actually competes or tries to replace the doctor, but we augment or we enhance the doctor's capability. So if you allow me to use a more colloquial way of describing the approach, I like to use this example of Iron Man, meaning Tony Stark, Iron Man from Marvel. If you're familiar with the story, Iron Man is not just the AI or not just Tony Stark, but it's a combination of the human being, which is the doctor, assisted by a smart assistant, in this case is Jarvis, and there's actually an environment where the capability is delivered, which is the suit of armor, so to speak. And that's the interface between the outside world or the patient when they come into consulting a doctor. So I use this simple, more juvenile way of explaining so that it's easy to understand that the way we look at technology and AI capability, it's more on the ability to work synergistically with our medical practitioners and enhancing their accuracy, their productivity, as well as patient safety along the way, rather than trying to compete or to replace the medical practitioner. So I hope that helps to present the view from Good Doctor Technology in terms of where we see AI capability functioning in its best to enhance our medical professions. Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. So it's a good relief that we're not going to replace doctors from what you say, right? So in fact, it's something like a human-robots collaboration. Sometimes we kind of call it cobots as well. So that's nice. So doctors shouldn't be too much worried about the invention or the rising of AI. Yeah, thanks for that. And wish you good luck in running Good Doctor and bringing to greater heights. Yeah. So maybe now we pass over to Raju. Raju, I know that recently you actually launched AI BOK, Body of Knowledge, right? I think with NUS or SES, right? Can you share with us more about the thinking behind launching such a BOK and how can it be used, especially for healthcare industry?
Thanks, Jim. It's called the AI Ethics and Governance Body of Knowledge. It was launched by Minister Iswaran on October 16, 2020. It's a collaboration between IMDA and the Singapore Computer Society, and it's the world's first such initiative that covers issues related to the development and deployment of ethics in AI. Healthcare is the most significant sector because of two reasons. One, AI is becoming increasingly prevalent in healthcare, as you know, and as we just discussed, in both diagnostics and research. Number two, any unethical practices can impact the lives of humans. And the AI body of knowledge, which is available online, all that you have to do or listeners have to do is go to Google and search for AI ethics and governance body of knowledge. And that will bring you to this site where there are 25 use cases, a whole bunch of resources from IMDA, from IEEE, from the EU guidelines, and chapters written by 30 professionals, including exclusive chapters written by Mr. Ishwaran, Justice V.K. Raja, the president of NUS, Professor Taneng Chai, the president of NTU, Professor Subra Suresh, as well as 4 doctors on how ethics in AI implicate the lives or impact the lives of people, doctors, surgeons, nurses, and the legal fraternity. So please go and take a look at it. And much of it is available for free downloads. Otherwise, there is only a $30 subscription to cover administrative costs per individual to download the entire body of knowledge, which is more than 600 pages long.
Thank you, Raju. It sounds very, very interesting, and definitely, I think we all should get a copy of that. You have very prominent figures, right, in the academic world, and as you mentioned, 4 medical doctors or clinical doctors who have actually contributed to that. So I'm sure that it's very relevant for the healthcare industry to take a look at this body of knowledge. Yeah, thanks for that. All right, and we actually have discussed quite a fair bit on AI, and we can see that the AI will not replace human, whether it's the doctors or the nurses, and it will actually collaborate very well in the AI triaging or diagnostic kind of capabilities. So let's move a little bit into robotics area, right? So just now, Shixing shared a lot on the robotics initiative in NCS already, and there's even a name to some of the robots called like Florence, right? So, and I know Shixing runs the NCS Corp Labs. So is there any other technologies Corp Lab is working on? And can you share some of the innovations that's in the pipeline, whether it's AI, robotics related, as well as maybe even beyond that?
Yeah, we are working on a number of new technologies in NCS corporate labs. We are also working with NTU in our Singtel AI Corp Lab in developing the new IPs. Today, I think I'm just giving you a peek view behind the curtain to see some of the development we have in NCS Corp Labs. I hope I can have a whole day to show you all the innovations we have here. I think I just want to give you another example. In NCS, we are also working on advanced deep learning techniques that recognize human gestures and the facial patterns for the purpose of attention modeling and recognition. We know traditionally, we only use the facial pattern to detect people's emotion, and then we do the expression recognition. However, in our new research, with a combination of using both the facial pattern, body gesture, and also using the speech, we can achieve a much better solution for attention monitoring and emotion detection. In healthcare, actually, it can be used for example, the pain level detection in hospital. So this is just one interesting technology we are working on. Hopefully in next webinar, I can show you a live demo of using that technology.
Thank you, Shixing. So very interesting innovations. We'll definitely hope to hear more in the subsequent webcast with you. Yeah, and maybe let's look at the chat. We have discussed a lot of good things that AI, robotics, or even other technologies can contribute to the healthcare industry. With your background as a medical doctor, what are other problem statements you think technologies can help to address, right? Whether it is from AI or from robotics or even any other technologies that you probably heard from Shixing or from your own research and knowledge.
Okay, so the way I'm going to reply to this is I'm very excited about what I classify as the how we do things. So I think all the individual capabilities and the areas of solutions to meet the different what's, and there's a lot of advancement and a lot of exciting things going on. But when I say how we do things in healthcare is basically the approach and where we focus our attention to. My view as a clinician is we've done a lot of work and efforts in an area that I call sick care or disease management. But in terms of prevention and, let's say, preservation of good health, or in fact, even optimizing the good health that we have before we fall ill, is very much just very generally approached, right? And the reason for that is not because we do not care about good health. I think we all do. It's just that there wasn't a way to effectively track and measure health conditions or health performance. But we have a lot of research and data that tracks disease conditions, right, and recovery. But if we do not have a system of tracking wellness from a very seamless and very objective data perspective, it's also very hard to say that whatever we do is managing health. So to me, if you track where the technology trends are heading, you have movements such as cloud computing that has really brought a lot of this capability front, center, and forward into everyday life. For me, if I were to do just a rough foresight exercise, the next wave would be basically 5G. And with this increased connectivity, the saying that I have is like, you're going to be able to do things real time, remotely, and really fast. And this includes complex computations, dynamic kind of sensing about your actions, activities, and in fact, having a way of monitoring a person's health situation almost in a continuous basis. So when all this is possible and it becomes ubiquitous, just like how right now there's literally Wi-Fi wherever we go, because it wasn't there before, and like how previously the last revolution where you have electricity just coming out of wall sockets, right? So imagine if now you have sensors and insights just surrounding you wherever you go. It gives us clinicians opportunity to actually design and create a new system of health. And this can complement the ready body of knowledge that we have in terms of traditional healthcare management, which is more of a disease management. So to me, that's the area that I think where we will be going to as part of the next wave. And the way we approach this will be outside the hospital or the clinic model. Because again, like I said, health system was based on the limitations we had previously. We did the best we could and we optimized. I think now, if we can think about it, we create a new system. We will use whatever capability that we have in today's terms and as well as future terms. And with that situation, you don't need to always bring a person back to a clinic setting or a hospital setting to actually do the servicing in terms of health management. So that to me, I would say is what I'm personally excited about as a clinician, and also where I hope where the opportunities will be going, and for us to actually think about what are these new areas and how can we deliver the better health outcomes using this approach. Yeah, so that's my kind of a commentary from where I'm looking at the world, basically.
Thank you, Chad. So hopefully, as you mentioned, there will be further contribution in a disease management perspective. Yeah. So maybe Raju, I understand you also have medical training background. Yeah, and today you are fellow with NUS and you are doing a lot of research. Maybe from your perspective, is there any other problem statements in the healthcare industry that you think technology can actually address as well?
Yeah, from my perspective, I mean, I went to medical school. So I see it from both perspectives, from an IT person as well as from a medical person. And I see 4 issues that need to be addressed by both the government and private sector. And those 4 issues are A, B, C, and D. A is for accountability. Who is accountable for the outcome that has an AI component? It's not the algorithm, it's the doctor, because the doctor is in charge of the patient. The doctor, the surgeon, the anesthetist, the primary physician, the GP, whoever has the responsibility to care for the patient is accountable AI is only an assist, a tool that helps the doctor for better differential diagnosis. So A is for accountability. B is for bias. Bias is inherent. Even as normal human beings, we are biased towards certain outcomes. We are biased against certain people. For instance, when it comes to saving the life of a young person compared to an old person, many people would be biased in one or the other's favor. And that bias percolates to the AI. Therefore, we as doctors and we as software professionals have to all the time ensure that we are aware of the bias and are trying to remove the bias from the algorithms or from whatever decisions we are taking based on the assist that we get from the AI. C is for confidentiality, because once the data is available, it is available for analytics, for storage, for big data, and whatever analytics is required, and it may not be in the hands of the doctor. It goes to the researchers, it goes to the government, it goes to the hospital. So who has the confidentiality, or who maintains the confidentiality or privacy of the patient? That has to be always kept in mind. And finally, D is for data, and data as far as data security, data privacy, and the cyber security attacks that are happening against data. We have seen even in Singapore, hacks have happened on healthcare data. Healthcare data has been compromised. So data is a very important resource in the medical industry. And it's the duty of the regulator and the professionals who are managing the software side of it and not the doctor. So this is one point that must be cleared. Maintaining the confidentiality and privacy of data is the responsibility of the software programmer, of the regulator, of the company that manages the algorithms, and not the doctors. So once there is clarity on all of these issues, we will have greater acceptance and greater prevalence and greater impact of AI on the healthcare industry. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Raju. So it's very interesting. Nowadays, ABCD becomes a very common term that can be used in everywhere in technology, and also now your ABCD model, the accountability bias, which is very strong and important point, because while we are always trying to see how can technology help to address or solve some of the problems or address some of the needs and challenges, people tend to forget that there's other consideration needed, like accountability, right? And data confidentiality, and so on and so forth. So I think this is a good point that for any technologies trying to come up with new inventions, this is another thing to also consider. Thanks for that. So thanks for all the sharing. Maybe as a parting note, right, I will invite all three panelists to also share. We see a lot of good things that we have discussed, right? But I'm sure every good things will have, like what Raju mentioned, considerations, right? And maybe from your perspective, we can start with Shi Xing first, right? What are some of the limitations or gaps of using either AI and or robotics in the healthcare industry? And what are the mitigations of improvements that you think you can suggest to make it better, right? I mean, Raju shared some of it already, but I think there are definitely some other limitations of gaps that, okay, I want to use AI, but maybe I lack of this or lack of that, or maybe if I do this, I will have potentially bring in new considerations or problems. So what are the things that from your perspective, you know, the limitation and gaps, and what are the mitigation or improvements that you can suggest?
As we know, today's AI technology can do certain things very well. It can find the patterns by getting a lot of data to train the model, but it has very limited capability in reasoning. And today we know with the deep learning technology, the AI is still very much a black box. We know what's the output, but we don't know how to explain why we come out with this result. So explainable AI is a very important topic for the applications in healthcare. In order to achieve that, we need to have more technology to really understand how an AI model to derive the result. So the explainability of the AI technology will be a next big thing, especially for healthcare applications.
Thanks, Shishing. Maybe Raju, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'm going to go on a positive note now and talk about two applications which are both using AI and which are benefiting, and it's in the cutting edge. So number one is there is a company called Ancon Technologies in Wuhan, in China. They developed a unique thing called a NaviCam, which is a tiny capsule which has got an embedded high definition camera, which the patient just gulps inside. And it's actually a wireless endoscope, which is fitted inside the capsule that the patient can swallow, and the doctor can remotely control this little piece of capsule to detect conditions which are generally very difficult to detect, such as acute upper gastrointestinal bleeding, duodenal ulcers, gastrointestinal tumors, which may be either benign or which may be malignant, and all the way right down to the rectum, because the capsule is thrown out through the rectum. So all the way from the esophagus, which is the mouth, all the way down to the colon and to the rectum, it's taking high definition images, which the surgeon can view in real time, in real color, in real high density, and diagnose. And this is something which is very revolutionary. The second one I want to talk about is a company called Intuitive Surgical, which is a US-based company which came out with the world's first robot-assisted AI-enabled surgical device called the Da Vinci. And they followed it up next, just a year ago, with a new device called ION, which is the first of its kind to do lung biopsies, minimally invasive lung biopsies. Basically, if there's a tumor in the lung, the CT scan shows where the tumor is, and this tiny little needle will go in just there, take out a biopsy of the tumor, and bring it out for the surgeon to send to pathology for further diagnosis. So these are so vital and so important, especially now, because they have both got abilities to do wireless imaging. For instance, a surgeon doesn't need to be in the operating room to do this capsule diagnostics. He can be sitting 100 miles away and he can see the actual capsule going into the patient who is very far away and diagnose him miles away using the cloud, using technology, using radiology, using high density imaging. So that's what makes this important, because the patient doesn't need to be at the doctor's beck and call or at the doctor's door anymore, which is a great advance for telemedicine. So I'm going to end on this high note because there are enough people talking about what can go wrong, but we should also talk about what can go right.
Thank you, Raju. Yeah, so nice. We see the positive and negative side of things, which are essential when it comes to any new innovations, right? You need to consider both sides of the coins. So maybe last, I will ask Chad to kind of conclude, because you have very diverse background. You are a medical doctor, you run innovations inside and outside healthcare industry, and now you run also AI health company. So how do you manage different perspective of things and looking at that? What are the limitations or gaps? Or maybe you can also give some positive note of what you think the AI and robotics can contribute to the healthcare industry.
I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to come from a human kind of mindset or persona basis, right? So what I've observed myself is that most medical professionals, we are trained and we are very good at solving very complicated problems. So when you become a very senior clinical practitioner, you are able to, in fact, handle more and more complex states of disease in your area of specialty. And if you think about the career arc of a professional clinician, it becomes deeper and deeper, but it doesn't necessarily become wider towards the end of the spectrum. But what I've observed is that I think the reason why nowadays, to the point of where we're getting the fact that there are changes, there are all this innovation and new ways of doing things, is because to me, the good thing is I have come across, I've met, and I have learned about the fact that within the clinical leadership cohort, there are people who are also very good generalists. That means they're able to think wide, they're able to draw from solutioning approaches that are not very common in the field of medicine, but maybe it's been successfully applied, or they know how to translate capabilities such as AI and technology from a very different origin in terms of the use case, and they're able to bring it effectively into healthcare. So we now have leaders are not only good at complicated problems, but we have people who are able to think and overcome complex scenarios, right? So I think with that, I mean, the positive view for me is that we are getting more and more those type of people in the healthcare industry, especially in the clinical world. And I think that has actually spurred and encouraged a lot more innovation, and you begin to palpate and feel a higher rate of change within the healthcare sector. So that's a positive way of toning it. But if you want to flip it around and come from a more conservative view, the fact that there is still a great majority of people who are still quite reluctant to, to kind of go out their comfort zone, because it's no fault of theirs, but it's because the fact that they are very deep experts. And, in order for you to reach that level of professionalism, it requires fine honing of a very particular skill or knowledge. So to actually then say that, oh, can we do it differently? Can we, for example, do a scope through a swallowed tablet versus a standard esophageal procedure, right? For example, that does take a bit of a different way of thinking about the problem. Yeah, so kind of we are halfway there, the way I feel. So I think over time, this balance will tip over, and I'm optimistic that it's more towards the positive side. So I think we're going to get a lot more innovation and change coming along. It's just the way progress is coming through.
Thank you, Chad. So yeah, I think it's very nice today that we have different perspectives shared by medical doctors, clinicians, researchers, academic, and technologies, right? So I think it's a very good balanced view. But again, all in all, never forget that at the end of the day, what are we trying to do is also to serve the patient, to serve the human. So any technology needs to be human-centric, patient-centric in a healthcare perspective. So I think this is something I would say as a parting notes. And I think Raju also mentioned, and Chad also mentioned, there are many different, very innovative solutions all around the world, right? Definitely with innovation arm of Singtel called Innovate, that we also bring in many partner solutions from all around the world, from US, China, Israel, and many other countries, right? And some of them are also AI or robotics centric, and they can complement and work together with NCS solutions pretty well, yeah? And last but not least, I will say that we are looking at integration of platforms, because we can have many point solutions, but like what Shixing mentioned, they can be multiple types of robots, and every of these robots can contribute differently. But from a hospital or healthcare institution perspective, you do not want to meddle with the complexity of the IT systems. And that's where, like what Shixing mentioned, Robot Manager from NCS provides the integrated platform. And from an AI perspective, which we'll discuss with you in the next webcast, there is this 2AI platform from NCS, which focus on integrating of IoT and AI, various technologies, various solutions together, so that you have an integrated platform. So I guess at the end of the day, as I mentioned, all these things is reducing the complexity, enhancing the availability and technology, and extended it to be a human/patient-centric solutions. So with that, I think we have come to an end of today's webcast. Thanks to all my panelists, Chad, Raju, and Shixing, for sharing your very valuable perspective and experiences. Thanks for that, and thanks all the audience for watching this webcast. And till the next webcast, we'll meet again. Thank you very much.